Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
About a 40% uptick in demand, first quarter of 2025 versus 2024.
Many investors look to the glint of gold as world markets plunge amid Donald Trump's tariffs.
It's not cheap.
Plus,
what am I supposed to do? Our price is going to go crazy.
buy new or used? Drivers wonder what car to go for as auto tariffs start to bite. And a Canadian woman held for more than a week by U.S. immigration shares her story as new travel warnings are issued.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Stock markets around the world have taken a plunge amid new tariffs from Donald Trump. That has many investors seeking the security of precious metals. And as Pinky Wong reports, that includes the lure of gold.
Gold, a precious metal. Prices have shot up and remained relatively unaffected by the uncertainty surrounding U.S. tariffs. But are people buying more gold?
We have seen the gold prices are going up. So if you invest in gold, so even in near future after 5 years, when you're selling it off, then you are the gainer. So of course, I think buying gold is obviously a good option.
People love gold, but again, it's not cheap. So if you're going to invest in that, you have to know what you're doing.
Rather to invest in the share market in this different stocks rather than the gold is a personal or individual choice.
This local gold dealer says he has seen a big surge in demand this month.
40% uptick in demand, first quarter of 2025 versus 2024, and that's investors looking for physical precious metals, coins and bars, and it sort of mirrors this uncertainty backdrop in the financial markets where they're going to things like precious metals for a little safe haven.
Levy says his company used to source some supply from the U.S., but he's now pivoting elsewhere for precious metals.
A large, especially for gold, for the Royal Canadian Mint, does come from within Canada. For different products, if they want silver, there are other markets they can access, Mexico being one of them, Poland being another one.
It is not just investors who are buying gold, according to this trader.
A lot of the people who are coming in right now to do precious metals because we both buy and sell. Far and above over 50% of the customers we're having coming in right now are looking to purchase, again, because of uncertainty. And I'd say out of that group, about 50% of the people who are buying are also first-time buyers.
He says his team will monitor and adjust how and where they source their products to meet demand. Pinky Wong, CBC News, Vancouver.
As the auto industry waits to see how U.S. and Canadian tariffs will affect the cost of vehicles, many drivers may be wondering if and when they ought to buy. As the CBC's Corey Bullock explains, others may look beyond a purchase.
I'm getting lots of questions from consumers who are saying, geez, what does this mean now? What am I supposed to do? Our price is going to go crazy.
The head of the New Car Dealers Association of BC says the auto tariff battle between Canada and the U.S. has many drivers wondering what to do. Blair Qualley's advice: try to lock in a price now.
Get a hold of your local dealer. They have all the options for you on various vehicles and what they can do today with the pricing today.
He says prices are bound to change, so now might be a good time to buy a new vehicle. CBC News reached out to almost a dozen dealerships in Cranbrook with little response. But in an email, General Manager at Spring Honda, Brett D'Ambrosi, says many local dealerships are still waiting to hear exactly how tariffs will affect pricing, production, and vehicle allocation. He stresses that Honda and other car makers have not guaranteed pricing for anything that's not on a dealership floor right now. The uncertainty may have people thinking of other ways to get around.
I think generally people are really watching what they can spend on what.
Sandra Phillips says demand for car sharing has increased in the Kootenays, where transportation options are slim. She says they're also looking to buy new vehicles outside the U.S.
We always look at the mix of the fleet. Is it still the right mix? Is it how many electric vehicles? Like this year, we're bringing 60 electric vehicles in. Where do they come from? And where do we also deploy them?
In the meantime, for some, there's always the heel-toe express. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
A former North Vancouver elementary school teacher has been convicted of 9 sex-related charges, most involving former grade 6 students. A BC Supreme Court judge found 85-year-old Brian Moore guilty of 8 counts of indecent assault and 1 count of touching for a sexual purpose. Moore worked at Upper Lynn Valley Elementary School from 1976 until he resigned in 1982. He often took some of his students on swimming and skiing trips. At trial, his victims recounted overnight trips to the Okanagan, where Moore would reach in to touch them in their sleeping bags. A new report says visits to Vancouver's downtown took a downturn last year. It's concerning for businesses that rely on foot traffic to survive, and especially after the brutality of the pandemic. The CBC's Karen Larson spoke with us earlier. Karen, how big is the drop?
Well, we should say first off, Dan, this report is from the Vancouver Downtown Business Improvement Association. It says 8% fewer people visited the downtown core in 2024 than did in 2023. And that's one of only, well, quite a few actually points of concern when we're talking about the overall vibrancy of the city core. There's also the number of vacant storefronts in 2024 up to almost 15%. Along the Granville Strip, it's almost 30%. And anyone who's been down there recently can feel the struggle on the street. In fact, the report says the high vacancy rate along Granville creates big challenges for the street's success as an entertainment district. Then, of course, there's the loss of the Bay. That's coming in June when it's slated to close down for 110 years. It's been a downtown destination and a magnet for shoppers, but no more. The company went into creditor protection, and that is dealing another blow to that area. Dan?
Were there any bright spots in this report?
Yes, a big bright spot. That would be, guess who? Taylor Swift. Yeah, not all doom and gloom. Taylor Swift's 3-concert stop at BC Place in December filled all the hotels and sparked a 26% increase in downtown spending over the duration, pumping about $150 million into the local economy. And the report cites Swift as a reason for the city to keep landing big events like next year's FIFA Men's World Cup. Dan?
All right. The CBC's Karen Larson. Thanks very much. Vancouver voters will go to the polls on Saturday. It's to elect 2 new city councillors. This by-election comes 2.5 years into council's 4-year mandate. And as Chad Pawson explains, it's seen as a referendum of sorts on the ruling party's direction.
Here at Vancouver City Hall, 2 council seats will be filled, with polls opening Saturday in what many are calling a referendum on the ruling ABC party. In 2022, Ken Sim and his ABC Vancouver party swept to victory, taking 7 of 10 council seats with a mandate of public safety, fiscal responsibility, and development and density. It's since adopted other priorities, such as dissolving the elected park board, trying to roll back some city climate change policies, and entertaining investments in Bitcoin. ABC's attempts to try and improve the city on its own terms has come with backlash and motivated progressive parties and candidates to try and claim the 2 seats and temper ABC. 13 candidates are running. Parties like One City, COPE, and the Greens say council needs to be more cooperative and egalitarian. They vow to make that happen if elected. Team for a Livable Vancouver's 2 candidates want big changes over how ABC approves development and density. Meanwhile, ABC is confident its 2 candidates will reinforce its supermajority on council. So how could this by-election play out? It will most likely come down to voter turnout. In the 2017 by-election, barely 11% of voters cast a ballot. ABC says it's mobilized 16,000 of its supporters to push its candidates through. Political watchers say progressive parties have work to do.
While ABC is the incumbent, and there are certainly lines of critique against that party, I don't know that we have reached that kind of tipping point where there has been a movement to the other column. And indeed, I'm not sure we have a clear other column yet, given the diversity of parties available on the left side of the spectrum.
Still, advance voting may reflect a desire for change in the city. Nearly 7,700 people have already voted. Another 6,400 have requested mail-in ballots. Those are records in Vancouver. On Saturday, 25 voting locations like the one here will open across the city from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. with results available shortly afterwards. Chad Pawson, CBC News, Vancouver.
A Canadian woman who was detained for more than a week by U.S. immigration is now sharing her story. Yvette Brand has more on what she says happened and the new warning from Canada for travelers heading south.
It was supposed to be a routine stop at this U.S.-Mexico border crossing.
And then this man just comes out and he goes, "Jasmine, can you come with me?"
That began an 11-day ordeal in U.S. detention for Canadian Jasmine Mooney, first in a cement cell dubbed an icebox.
There was girls laying on the ground with this aluminum blanket over their body, like a dead body.
The saga started a year ago. The former actress says she'd been working in California. Last spring, when she returned to Canada for a visit, U.S. border officials denied her a work visa at a BC border crossing over some missing letterhead. A lawyer advised she go through Mexico to reapply for that visa. She did, and it was approved. But after a trip to Vancouver last November, her visa was revoked for a second time when trying to return to California. So she again flew to Mexico.
I advised her not to do it because it was right after the new administration, and I started seeing these cases pop up.
The worst that I thought that could happen is I would get denied.
She was eventually deported, but her story now just one of several of U.S. border agents detaining people over visas.
What's unusual about these cases, in my mind, there's really no immigration violations.
Ottawa issued new guidance Friday that U.S.-bound travelers should expect greater scrutiny at the border, including searches of electronic devices and warning travelers could be detained. Mooney is banned from the U.S. for 5 years, but hopes to appeal and return.
I'm 100% appealing. I'm not going to let this experience jade my views on America because I love America.
She will never forget the kindness of the women detained with her.
They're put through this. There has to be a better system.
She wants to help them, like they tried to help her. Yvette Brand, CBC News, Vancouver.
Victoria has received its first cruise ship of the season with the arrival of the Koningsdam.
Is really our official kickoff to what we think will be a very healthy cruise season and bringing almost 1 million guests into our fabulous city and our region.
The Koningsdam, which is operated by U.S. cruise line Holland America, is carrying more than 2,600 passengers, most of them Americans. It docked at Victoria Port at 10 a.m. and is the first of 320 cruise ships expected to arrive in the capital this season.
Canadians are great. They've always liked Americans. Americans love Canadians. There's a lot of Canadians on the boat. I meet them all the time.
We are going to take a guided tour of beautiful Victoria, so I hear. And then I'm doing a high tea at 3 o'clock.
I was a little worried about going into the States, but super great. You know, have a good time, have a great trip. Really, really nice.
This year, 1 million cruise ship visitors are expected to disembark in Victoria. It's unclear how the trade war with the U.S. will impact future American cruises. Repair crews, meanwhile, will be working throughout the weekend to reopen West Side Road north of Kelowna after that landslide on Tuesday night. The Ministry of Transportation expects single-lane alternating traffic to resume on Monday. The washout was triggered by heavy rain about 13 kilometers east of West Kelowna. Crews are expected to remove debris and install new culverts. The alternate route is Highway 97. Darius Madavi is here with our look at the weather. Pretty nice day for cruise ship passengers to be arriving in the capital, I'd say.
I'd say so, yeah. I mean, look at that. Not a hint of precipitation in sight there. A little bit of cloud, but for the most part, some high cloud and easy to see the sun through it. If we look over the next couple days, this model is overseeing the cloud right now, obviously, but if we roll this forward, we see some more cloud build in tomorrow morning. Probably around mid-morning, late morning, we start to see a few showers potentially come to the North Island. This model does have it see a little bit more rain earlier than other models, so just be aware of that. The showers may come a bit later for parts of the island. As we continue to roll this forward, you'll see it continuing to work its way down the island by the evening time and then reach the lower mainland probably overnight. Although, again, coming a little bit earlier in this model than others, the showers could be quite scattered overnight, but then we'll see some rain move in on Sunday and showers continue scattered through Monday.
Okay, we'll check in later. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Still ahead, despite the tariff threats from U.S. President Donald Trump and a downward national trend, the latest labor force survey shows BC saw more jobs from February to March. We'll break down the numbers after the break.
I think it's important to give a human face
to the stories that we hear every day, the people that they affect. And I think talking to those people is what really gives us the true sense of the impact of the stories that we're hearing.
It was another precipitous drop in global markets today, the second following Donald Trump's wide-ranging tariff announcement. The CBC's Kyle Bax looks at the growing fears of more losses and a coming recession.
Trillions of dollars wiped from world markets as American tariffs are met with counter tariffs from around the globe.
China, first row.
The brewing trade wars now escalating and threatening to sink much of the world into a recession. The market woes will hurt many people's investments and retirement funds.
This is dramatic in terms of what it's going to do for growth, for cost, for, I think many of these companies. And that's why it continues to be the most absurd thing I've seen on Wall Street covering stocks 25 years.
What drives stock prices is profits. And businesses are looking at their balance sheets and saying, my costs are going up because of these tariffs. And I think my orders are going to go down because consumers aren't going to be buying as much. And that dims profits, and that's what we see happening in the stock market right now.
North American markets crashed Thursday, falling about 5%. Today, another plunge. The main reason is China, retaliating with its own tariff of 34% on U.S. goods, further intensifying tensions between the world's two largest economies.
This major sell-off is driven by global growth, which does have implications on Canada. And the reason why it has implications on Canada, one of the largest tariffs was against China, the second biggest economy in the world. That will have an impact on growth here as well, too.
Some market players are now warning this isn't the bottom, with further fallout expected from the trade war around the globe. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
You might be keeping closer tabs on gas prices now that the carbon tax is gone. Prices at the pumps vary widely, though, depending on what part of the province you're in. As John Hernandez explains, the discrepancies are significant, but not altogether uncommon.
If you're fueling up in the Lower Mainland, the odds are you're spending around $1.80 per liter. Prices have hovered near that price since the carbon tax was dissolved on April 1st.
Leaving town, we gassed up. It was in the high 170s.
This Maple Ridge resident drove to Grand Forks on Tuesday. When he got there, he fueled up for $1.37 a liter.
We came back 2 days later. We gassed up again for the same amount. We got down here to Vancouver, Maple Ridge, it was 181.9. So we're looking at almost 50 cents difference. I think we're getting ripped off.
A sentiment likely shared by many drivers when they take a look at the pump. Prices in the interior are still around 40 cents cheaper than the Lower Mainland. But the BC Utilities Commission says the difference likely boils down to basic supply, demand, and costs.
Sometimes they're legitimate cost differences, the cost of getting the gasoline to this particular location. Sometimes they're strategic differences. Somebody's actually saying, I'm going to sell gas for less money because I want to attract people here.
He says a gas station's proximity to refineries in Alberta could also drive down prices. And then there's Metro Vancouver's transit tax.
We have a 27 cents per liter fuel charge at the provincial level. That includes a charge for TransLink. We have a somewhat lower rate in the Capital District in Victoria, and then the rest of the province only has 14.5 cents.
Experts say prices on the coast could come down further as firms adapt to both the carbon tax and the global market. The price of oil has dropped amid the trade war.
If there's a few other gas stations within close proximity to you and they're lowering the price faster than you are, you don't want to lose business to them, so you're more likely to lower your price more quickly.
Prices at the pump might vary, but regulators say there's no signs of deliberate gouging. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, it is a sure sign of spring. We have cherry blossoms bursting forth across the Lower Mainland. And Darius will have your BC-wide weather forecast coming up shortly.
I'm Stephen Quinn, and I love living here in Vancouver, BC. It's a city with world-renowned beauty, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. In our new daily podcast, This is Vancouver, we're exploring the diverse range of issues and stories in the city, the good, the bad, and everything in between, as told by the people who live it every day. Don't miss This is Vancouver, available wherever you get your podcasts, and I'll talk to you soon.
Cats, as many people know, have long been popular pets. But how many is too many? A BC Animal Rescue says they recently found dozens of the animals in a home in horrific conditions. Pinky Wong has the story and a warning before we show it to you. Some of the images may be disturbing.
This was the scene waiting for Regional Animal Protection Society volunteers after they were alerted by a family member last month.
What they discovered in this house was overwhelming and traumatizing. They experienced nausea from the smell that was in the space. The cats were at different times roaming all over the house.
Jonah Gold was one of the kittens who were sick and dirty when taken to the vet.
Cats are naturally very clean animals, so the fact that there's feces and urine everywhere means that they're like really kind of suffering mentally in that way too.
The society says 2 animal rescue organizations had intervened in the past but left cats that were without spaying or neutering, which resulted in further reproduction.
They don't really have anywhere else to hide, right?
Because they've had, you know, the same mom and dad, and then they just breed with their mom and dads too, and then you get a lot of like genetic conditions.
Dr. Victoria says one cat typically needs at least 2 litter boxes to reduce stress-related conditions, but she says the house where the cats were found had no litter boxes at all.
Kind of see on there, eyes are very like goopy and swollen.
Caitlin Materi has been fostering a few kittens and says some of the cats found were not familiar with people.
They're very fearful and scared of anyone who kind of comes near them. So it just takes some time to get them used to human touch, and they're great house pets.
The vast majority of people who hoard animals are well-intentioned. They do not set out to harm the animals. They are often described as overburdened caregivers.
This hoarding expert says clinical interviews reveal people who hoard animals often see them as points of connections.
People who typically have early life attachments to animals that are very strong, perhaps stronger than with other humans.
While unaware about the specifics of this case, she says people who hoard may often be living with co-occurring mental illnesses. The rescue team says kittens and cats will be open for adoption after being spayed and neutered, and those who cannot be socialized will be staying in their sanctuary. Pinky Wong, CBC News, Richmond.
The environment is taking a back seat into other issues in a long-held Green riding here in BC. The party has won in Saanich Gulf Islands the past 4 federal elections. The CBC's Renee Lucas tells us which way some voters are leaning this time.
I mean, of course, I don't take anything for granted. That would be very foolish.
Federal Green Party leader Elizabeth May has won Saanich Gulf Islands since 2011. Before that, it went to a right-of-centre party as far back as 1988. May acknowledges Donald Trump's trade war and threats of annexation have moved the environment down voters' list of priorities. She says the fight for Canada is front of mind for her, too.
This is not us changing our campaign. This is Canadians saying, show us leadership. Who's going to take on that bully in the White House? I'm not scared of the bully in the White House. I went down to Washington in early February.
But will that be enough this election? David Murner was the Liberal candidate in Esquimalt-Souk in 2015 before running for the Greens in 2019. He says May's in for a tough fight.
Even the Greens in Saanich Gulf Islands are saying, we're going to do everything we can to keep Pierre Poilievre out. He's a danger to Canada, he's a danger to the environment, and so we have to pay attention to this strategic vote.
Asked about strategic voting, Conservative candidate Cathy Ounstead's campaign tells CBC News Cathy believes voters should cast their ballots based on which candidate will best represent their local community's interests and values. So which way are voters leaning?
At this point in time, I think we're still undecided. Yeah.
The Green Party is all about the green movement and about the climate and about the trees, and which I like. I like trees; they're wonderful things. But I don't get the hysteria. I don't get the panic.
Voters will decide on April 28th. Renee Lucas, CBC News, Vancouver.
Kamloops is now divided into 2 ridings in this federal election. In recent history, the entire area has been a Conservative stronghold. Downtown Kamloops, though, is now part of both ridings, divided roughly along 6th Avenue. The CBC's Shelley Joyce spoke with business owners and residents who have a ton to say about the upcoming vote.
What are some of the issues you've been dealing with here in Kamloops as a business owner?
Well, we deal with a lot of crime, a lot of homelessness, a lot of mental health. We generally, like, daily have people screaming, doing open drug use.
Is there a leader or political party that you think can help to solve these problems?
I'm not sure. I'm hoping so. I personally, I mean, we've already had a government and so far everything has crumbled under that. So I would say I would lean towards Conservative because they are promising to help with these issues.
Do you know who you're going to vote for?
Not at all right now. I'm so mixed up because of what everyone's promising things, and you see all the things that are happening in the Lower Mainland. It comes up this way, a lot of the violence where these people are, repeat offenders doing things that are assaulting people like 10 or 15 times and nothing happens.
The difficulty with the homeless is the number one issue. What we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years is just an increase in homelessness, from breaking windows and stealing and theft to using our backyard as a toilet, and just endless problems.
When it comes to this upcoming election at the end of April, which political party do you think can help support your business here best?
If I had to throw a dart at the board, I would probably move in the Conservative direction. I've seen where we've come from when it was a Conservative-led government to where it came to under a Liberal-led government, and I haven't seen good results.
One of the major issues that we're focused on right now is the cost of doing business, and also making sure that our customers have money to spend. If they don't have money in their pocket, whether that's due to inflation or more money having to go towards needs, then it's harder for them to come here and shop.
What government do you think could help to solve some of the issues that you as a business owner have been going through here?
I definitely tend to lean left with my voting, and I really appreciate social programs. I think that when you have the ability to vote, you should be looking at what benefits your community as a whole. But this election, I will be voting Liberal.
I make money doing it, but I spent last night beside the Plaza Hotel in that huge rainstorm getting soaked. And why don't I have a roof over my head? Like, why am I out here doing, I'm a music player, I do okay, I'm friendly, I'm happy, I'm kind. What's going on here? What's really going on here?
Well, which government do you think would help you?
If the Liberals get their thumb under the bum and really address what people want, and really what they're voted for, personally, I think they shall be hired, not voted for. Right? If you don't live up to your campaign promises, you should be fired.
On the campaign trail today, Mark Carney promised to boost funding to the CBC.
We will not only increase CBC Radio Canada's funding by $150 million, but we will also make this funding statutory, meaning that Parliament as a whole will need to approve any future changes to its funding, not just the Cabinet. By strengthening our public broadcaster, we're protecting our identity and our culture and helping it to shine around the world. We're making Canada strong.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, meanwhile, has said he wants to defund the CBC while maintaining its French language programming. The Liberals have now dropped a candidate who was running in Edmonton. CBC News has confirmed that Rod Loyola will no longer represent the Grits in the riding of Edmonton Gateway. The party's decision came after a video emerged in which he appears to support Hamas and Hezbollah during a protest in 2009. Loyola resigned his seat as an NDP member of the Alberta legislature to run for the Liberals. He now says he'll run as an independent in a different Edmonton riding. Parties have until April 7th to finalize their candidates. The Conservative leader was also in Quebec today. Pierre Poilievre made an announcement about how he would address the problem of intimate partner violence. He says he has a 3-part plan.
1, we'll create a new criminal offense for assault of an intimate partner. This will deliver tougher sentences for those who do domestic violence. 2, there will be jail and not bail as a default for people who are accused of domestic violence, so that they cannot be released on the street and re-offend against their victims. 3, we will end the senseless practice of downgrading murder of an intimate partner to manslaughter simply because the murderer claims that it was a crime of passion.
Poilievre says if elected, the murder of an intimate partner or child would be treated as first-degree murder. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is targeting corporate tax loopholes. Singh accuses the firm Liberal leader Mark Carney used to head of being a major beneficiary of such things.
Well, Mark Carney, his position sadly, as the chair of a large corporation, Brookfield Investments, that while he was there, they avoided paying over $5.3 billion in taxes.
Singh announced 3 policy planks: a review to eliminate tax loopholes, the cancellation of certain agreements with countries he described as permitting tax havens, and a requirement for companies registering abroad to demonstrate an economic purpose before receiving any tax break. Scientists say it is likely that the closest active volcano to the Alaskan city of Anchorage will erupt soon. If it does, the primary concern is ash, which could impact both residents and flights in that area. Johanna Wagstaff now with how scientists are getting ready.
Scientists say this volcano in Alaska is going to erupt soon. Mount Spur has been showing signs of action for the past year, but things are ramping up. If you're picturing massive lava flows, think again. The biggest threat will actually be ash. That's footage from the last major eruption in 1992. And based on past eruptions, this stratovolcano will erupt explosively from its flank rather than straight up through the crater's solid layers. And depending on wind and weather, volcanic ash could blanket Anchorage, just 130 kilometers to the east. If the eruption happens during daylight, the ash cloud could block out the sun for hours, plunging the area into total darkness. Ash is dangerous to breathe. It damages cars and machinery and can disrupt daily life. The best move during an ashfall: stay indoors. Live ashfall forecasts are already being generated based on daily weather conditions. Other hazards: avalanche-like clouds and fast-moving debris flows down the sides of the volcano, meaning recreational trips will be off limits. And then there's air travel. Ash could rise high into the atmosphere, and the tiny glass-like particles can re-harden inside jet engines, posing a serious threat. Since Alaska's airspace is a major route for trans-Pacific flights, this eruption could affect a lot more people than just those in Anchorage, including flights from Toronto to Seoul or Hong Kong to Memphis. Okay, so how soon is soon? We're talking months or even weeks. Here's what the science is telling us. Mount Spur is one of 86 active volcanoes in Alaska. So you better believe the Alaska Volcano Observatory has been fully monitoring this volcano for any clues that the magma deep within is on the move. That includes tracking earthquakes. Hundreds of shallow microquakes have been detected near the volcano, evidence of underground movement. A massive steam plume has been rising from the summit in recent days, and heat from below is warming the slopes and melting the snow and ice. And finally, scientists have measured increased levels of carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide, both signs of rising magma. But we know, based on those past eruptions, there should be some warning time. Instruments will pick up actual ground deformation, and there will be what we call a volcanic shudder, a long rumbling earthquake to signal that final push of magma. That's when officials will raise the current advisory to full-on warning, giving people on the ground at least a few hours to prepare. Okay, so a massive dump of ash may be on the way soon. Could that affect the global climate? Probably not. Large-scale climate disruptions only happen when a volcano injects massive amounts of sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere, leading to a temporary cooling. But here's a wild stat. While Mount Spur will release some CO2 into the atmosphere, it will be a fraction compared to human emissions. For context, Mount St. Helens in 1980 released 10 million tons of CO2 in just 9 hours. Humans release the same amount every 2.5 hours. For now, all eyes are on Mount Spur.
Up next, a decade of being starstruck. SFU's Trottier Observatory marks a decade of galaxy gazing. We'll speak with the CBC's Bob McDonald, host of Quirks and Quarks, about the importance of connecting people to the stars. You'll want to see this. Ahead of the weekend, here's our science and climate specialist, Darius Madavi, to tell us what we can expect, at least, hopefully good news for part of the weekend.
Yeah, part of the weekend. Everybody gets good news for part of the weekend. I think that's the nice part. I wanted to switch up.
How magnanimous of you.
Yeah, I wanted to switch up and start with a different graphic, but none of them quite tell the story like this one. It makes it very clear. If you want sunshine, you want blue. If you want rain, you want red. And you can see blue sticks around for the most part on the coast through Saturday, in the interior through Sunday, and then the red sweeps in and we start to see that low pressure take over and some rain starts to push ashore. So expect a rainy Sunday on the coast and then a showery start to next week across much of southern BC. For parts of the island, the rain, showers will start tomorrow and then rain picks up in the overnight hours for the most part. We'll see, as you can see here, some models have that rain coming a bit earlier to the island, but I think for the most part, maybe the North Island sees some showers during the day on Saturday. For the most part, it's later, late afternoon, evening, that we start to see the proper rain that continues overnight and into Sunday morning. Here in the Lower Mainland, it has been shifting earlier as well, so expect probably at the latest mid-morning on Sunday, we'll start to see some rain move into parts of the Lower Mainland. In the interior, though, it takes until early next week for those showers to start breaking in. So one more day of those warmer temperatures and that sunshine. Total shouldn't be too high in any one particular spot over the next 60 hours or so. So through Monday midday, we'll probably see some decent accumulations up around Squamish and around the Howe Sound area. The North Shore of Metro Vancouver should see a fair amount, but probably not too much for North Vancouver, West Van. That's probably going to be up in the Alpine. Freezing levels they will fall on Sunday, but potentially not enough to really mean some snow for the local mountain. Not likely to be enough to see snow in the local mountains. Whistler, though, will likely see some snow on Sunday up at those higher elevations, but probably wetter snow. But again, nothing too crazy here, nothing too notable. 60 hours is a long time. That rain is spread out throughout the day, most of the day on Sunday and into Monday. Temperatures, as you'll notice, nice and warm tomorrow on the coast and in the interior, staying warm in the interior on Sunday, dropping on the coast, and then Monday, everybody pretty much catches up back down to around seasonal. Conditions across the province tomorrow, lots of sunshine, but the coast, north coast, central coast, start to see the beginnings of some showers. And here's our 5-day forecast, Dan. We've got a bit of sunshine, and then the rain and the showers return.
But the rain is good, because we could top it up, especially given our freezing level. Exactly. And, snowpack. But we haven't done this for a while. Ready? We need some fun this week. Fun Fact Friday. SFU's Trottier Observatory is celebrating 10 years of connecting people to the stars.
And to mark the occasion, the CBC's Bob McDonald, host of Quirks and Quarks, is giving a special talk titled, "What if everything we know is wrong?" And I thought I'd let him take it away this time. Yeah, so you're in town to give a talk at the Trottier Observatory up at SFU, celebrate the 10th anniversary.
Yeah, and I'm very happy to celebrate the 10th anniversary. I was actually at the opening of it 10 years ago, believe it or not. And they've been just doing wonderful stuff there to not only do astronomy and teach astronomy, but bring it to the public. Introduce the public to the universe. What a wonderful thing. And their telescope that they have is a really good camera on it. So they're getting images out of that telescope, which isn't gigantic by astronomical terms, but it's acting like a big telescope. So it's just terrific. And so I'm happy to be part of the celebration.
Why is it so important that we have spaces like that to connect people with science?
I think of the universe as the ultimate environment of the Earth. And we talk about the environment, people think, oh yeah, your backyard, North America, the world, but the Earth is only one of a whole series of planets in a solar system that's part of a galaxy, that's part of an expanding universe. And it's by looking at other planets and other worlds that we understand this one.
Okay, and to get people a little bit excited about the idea of space, do you have a fun fact that you can present to us? What's your most mind-blowing space fact?
Well, this blew my mind just recently. It just came out last week, but the latest evidence from the James Webb Space Telescope suggests that we could be living inside a black hole, that our whole universe is a black hole, and we're inside it. So that means two things, if that's true. One, we are part of somebody else's universe, and they're a whole lot bigger than we are. And the black holes in our universe, like the one that's at our center of our Milky Way galaxy, has a universe inside it. And on ad infinitum in both directions.
That is I mean, the idea of the universe is big enough already, but without going, dimensions in either direction.
That's right. Well, since we've never been inside a black hole, we don't know what's in there. But it's an interesting thought. Because if you add up all the mass of the universe and how big we think it is, the gravitational pull. It could be a black hole.
And your talk today that you're giving is has a pretty special title. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's called What If Everything We Know Is Wrong? And the reason I'm talking about that is because astronomy, over these centuries, has told us that the way we see ourselves and our place in the universe has been incorrect or incomplete. Because, you know, just to your human senses, the Earth looks pretty flat. It doesn't seem to move. The sky looks like a big dome over our head. And if you're a flat earther, that's what you believe because it's what we see. But thanks to astronomy, it said, no, you live on a ball. The ball moves. It goes around the sun goes around the galaxy. And I'm going to go through tonight major changes in thought that we've had right up to the present, where we don't know what most of the universe is made of, because it's made of two elements, dark energy and dark matter. And when scientists say dark, that means, yeah, I don't know what that is, right? But they make up 95% of the universe. So that means that we and the Earth and the planets and the stars that we see are only 5% of what's really out there. 95%. So when you look up at the night sky, look at the black, because that's really what the universe is made of. And we haven't got a clue what it is.
Cool. Well, here's a big name in special effects, setting up a new home here in BC. The latest addition to Hollywood North. Next. You might call it excellent news. With Trump's tariffs increasing the cost of most of the staples in your grocery cart, eggs grown in BC are one of the few proteins protected from the hits.
Shelley Joyce reports from Kamloops.
Eggs have always been popular, but these diners know that cheap protein is hard to find these days. And restaurants are relying more and more on the humble egg raised in BC to get them through the tough times.
Cost of eggs are going up everywhere right now. But it's not as bad as all the other proteins.
Eggs have always had their moments.
Amanda Bertain is the director of marketing for BC Egg. She says it's not unusual for eggs to get their turn in the sun. And the next time you get crackin', there's a good chance your egg was raised in BC.
Eggs have gone up, just like most grocery items have, but we are not seeing the size of price increase that our neighbors to the south are seeing. We produce just enough eggs to feed the people of Canada. Here in BC, most of the eggs are farmed right in BC.
4 of the gray, and then one of these ones.
One of the red rock.
Yeah.
If you really want a cheaper egg, you could always go the backyard route and grow your own.
Red Rock Cross is a cross between a barred Plymouth Rock and a Rhode Island Red. These are big birds and they're very beautiful.
It's Chick Tuesday at Purity Feed in Kamloops. And one of these little guys, or I should say girls, will cost $8.50 each.
We're seeing a huge rise in people wanting to really pay attention and have a hand in where their food comes from.
3 chicks, 2 bags of feed, 1 light bulb. 3, 2, 1. All right, $85 even.
These chicks, shipped in from Alberta, will eventually produce about 5 to 7 eggs a week. So do the math. A carton of 12 eggs in a BC grocery store is around $4.35. So that's about 36 cents each. If your hen lays eggs for several years, it makes breakfast a lot cheaper. Shelley Joyce, CBC News, Kamloops.
A visual effects giant has a more permanent home in BC. Industrial Light and Magic, founded by creator Star Wars, has unveiled its new office in Vancouver.
Our Yasmin Khanea got a tour.
1, 2, 3.
It's only right that a lightsaber cuts the ribbon at Industrial Light and Magic's new studio space.
Today, ILM Vancouver is our largest studio.
The visual effects company has created some of the most iconic imagery in cinema since it was founded in 1975 by George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars. ILM Vancouver started as a pop-up in 2012, only now having a permanent home decked out with some familiar faces.
So much of this work and what we do is about looking at images together and trying to figure out how to make them better, and I couldn't think of a better space to do that in.
BC politicians acknowledge the American company's new studio opens amid the trade war started by Donald Trump.
We do need to stand up to these problematic tariffs, but it doesn't mean that we don't love our American neighbors.
Despite the province's opposition to the U.S. levies, the finance minister says BC will support American businesses that are here.
If you have any negative sentiment coming your way because you're an American company, you let me know and I'll get in the way because we just value you so very, very much.
And nearly 1,000 people will work here.
And we see a sustainable future for anyone who wants to build a career in visual effects here in Vancouver.
ILM says the new space offers new opportunities for those working in Hollywood North. Yasmin Khanea, CBC News, Vancouver.
And just before we go, we have some breaking soccer news in BC. The Vancouver Whitecaps confirm they're in talks with the city around building a new stadium at the Peony Fairgrounds. The team says it's wanted to have a purpose-built stadium as it rents and plays in BC Place right now. Interestingly, the team, which began in 1974, started at the old Empire Stadium at the Peony Fairgrounds.
Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, YouTube, and our website.
And we'll have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. Good night.